how to overcome addiction, okay? And I am one of the most qualified people to talk about overcoming addiction because I used to be super addicted to every single drug. I used to smoke weed a lot. I used to just drink all the time. And this was in college. And it was also due to my environment and the people I hanged around with, okay? But in this video, I'm gonna give you some simple techniques that you can apply to your own life so you can actually overcome the addiction you have, whether it's weed, whether it's drugs, whether it's any type of thing that you struggle with, okay? Literally, I told myself when I was younger that I would never do any drugs, right? I told myself that's not me, that's not who I am. And I ended up, going to college, and I started drinking all the time, so I got peer pressured into it. I started smoking. I thought it was cool. I even thought it was good for me at the start. I was like, yeah, it helps me relax, it helps me focus, it helps me do these things. But it was all a lie to sort of comfort my addiction that slowly got worse and worse and worse, okay? Once I started combining weed and alcohol at the same time, that's when I realized that something bad was going on, right? I used to go out all the time, used to get crossed, used to tell people that they should get crossed because it feels great. And it got so bad, man, that it was just, I almost died drinking. My friends had to save me because I was sleeping, I was throwing up, and I was throwing up in my sleep. My friend put a backpack on me, saved me. It was quite tough, and until I realized that this shit's not worth it, that's when I started to change, right? That's when I realized it wasn't a good idea to do that stuff, and I started no longer identifying with it, guys. But this is something I know I can speak a lot of because it really took up most of my life when I was 19 and 20, and I just want to share that knowledge with you guys, and hopefully you guys can take some sort of notes on it. If addiction controls your life, guys, you're no longer in control, and a lot of shitty things happen, and a lot of shitty things happen around you, all right? I'm a big believer in your vibrational state, right? And so when you take drugs and when you do shit like that, you get to such a low vibrational state that all you care about is food and sex, and you don't really care about anything else, and you kind of just lose sense of reality, and it's really, really terrible. So the number one thing, I'm gonna start with the most important thing because that's what you guys are here for, and it's really a self-identification problem, okay? So when I started smoking once a week, twice a week with my friends or whatever, and then it turned into every day. It's 2 times a day, it got pretty bad to the point where I no longer could function doing other things, and it started affecting my workouts. And that's exactly when I realized it wasn't a fucking good idea, okay? When you see it starts impacting your workouts, your social life, your relationships, that's exactly when you know you have a problem, okay? And so the one way that I realized that was really easy for me to get out of it, okay, is no longer identifying with the concept of a person who smokes weed, okay? So when you smoke, you hang around with people who also smoke, you hang around and you do things, and you kind of identify part of your personality as a smoker, as a drinker, as whatever it may be, right? So the first step, which is the hardest one, is really to stop identifying with that thing, all right? So if you're identifying yourself as a smoker, you're like, yeah, I smoke, or yeah, I drink, or whatever, that's reinforcing in your head that you are that type of person. So the first thing you need to say to yourself is, I'm not a drinker, I don't smoke. David doesn't smoke, right? I don't smoke, I don't do that, right? That's not what I do, right? And you start saying it to people, okay? When you start saying this stuff to people, you will start reinforcing it in your head that that's not who you are, right? And you're putting pressure on yourself, especially from the people that you trust, that you're not that type of person, okay? So start verbalizing how you are no longer that person. Not, I'm trying to quit, not, I'm thinking of stopping, I need to take a break. No, you have to say, I don't do that anymore, that's not me, okay? You have to say that over and over and over again, okay? And obviously you have to stop. And the question is, how do you stop, right? Because it's very, very hard, especially when you're super locked into whatever drug you're doing, okay? You have to slowly get out. A lot of people, sometimes they stop cold turkey, but for the heavy users, okay, it's quite difficult and the withdrawals are quite tough, okay? So one thing you need to do, right, is you have to monitor how much you're using that said drug, right? Are you using it twice a day, 4 times a day, every other day, okay? And then you have to make a plan that slowly decreases that usage, okay? So if you smoke twice a day, do once a day, then twice a day, then once a day, then 0 times a day. Then 0 times, do 1 every other day, and then once a day. So you have to slowly taper off. This is the only way your body's going to get naturally used to coming down to baseline, because your dopamine levels are so high, okay? The reason why a lot of you guys are not going to quit your drugs or your addictions is because it gives you too much dopamine, and you have to slowly lower that dopamine level until you get to baseline. So the best way to do it is like 1 day on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, 3 days off, and you slowly come off like that, okay? It's really, it has to be done in a very slow manner, and that's the only way you're actually going to stick to it, okay? Because like that, you know, you can look forward to it whenever, you know, like towards the end when you're just like, okay, you know, like I kind of like the drug, but like I'm slowly using it less and less, and your body will get used to it, okay? So if you pair this with the identity thing, you say, I'm no longer a smoker, and you slowly stop smoking weed, you slowly stop drinking, you know, slowly, that's how you eventually get out of the cycle. Because let's say if you do it once a week now, or twice, or once every 2 weeks, right, your body's naturally going to want to crave it less than if you do it every day, and you just stop cold turkey, okay? I've tried to stop cold turkey many times, and it's worked for a little bit, but then you just rebound, right? So the best way to do it is to slowly taper off, okay? Slowly taper off. And now you're saying, okay, you know, but what if I relapse? What do I do with all that time, right? You guys gotta understand that the time that you spend doing the drug needs to be replaced with something else, okay? Something else that has an equal or similar level of fun that's not drugs, okay? And a lot of people, they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna stop, I have so much free time to do other stuff. No, you have to occupy yourself in that time frame to do something else. So take on a new skill, take on something, fill that time, right? So something that I did when I was smoking all the time and I was just messed up, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start social media, right? I'm gonna start it on the side. So instead of smoking for 30 minutes, I'm gonna, like, you know, post something for 30 minutes every day, right? So instead of giving yourself that reward of a drug, you're giving yourself a reward of doing something productive, okay? And so therefore you're gonna start tricking your brain into saying, oh, okay, I'm still doing an action that gives me dopamine, but it's just a different action, right? So you kind of transfer, okay? There's always this law, guys, that energy is never stored or like released or whatever, it's only transferred. This is the same thing that applies to drugs, okay? So you have to transfer that energy of you doing the drug or you doing whatever you're doing into something else. And only then, when you combine these three things, you change your identity, you start transferring that energy into something else, and then you slowly taper off, only then you can actually have a successful detachment from the drug, okay? This is what I've noticed, because I also used to be a really heavy drinker. I used to drink like 6 times a week in college, and it was an absolute mess, right? And the real thing here, guys, is also your friends, right? The friends, the people you hang out with, they probably support this behavior of you doing drugs because they also do them as well. So if you want to take things to extreme and you really want to change the trajectory of your life, you have to stop talking to those friends, right? Because they are going to slowly drift away from you. Unfortunately, this happened to me as well. I used to have a lot of friends that were smokers, and I stopped smoking, and then, you know, you realize you really don't really have much in common with them, okay, guys? When you switch drugs to no drugs, or drugs to a different sort of dopamine, right? Like, you have to associate that with other good things. So new friends, new hobbies, new identity, right? That's kind of the whole transformation. And if you're able, guys, to get rid of addiction and you're able to pass through it, you can pretty much do anything else, right? It is one of the hardest things to do, especially if you use that drug a lot, and it takes a lot of mental power. But I'm giving you guys the fucking framework that helped me, because a lot of people, they just say, oh, just quit cold turkey, do something else, you know? Like, I'm here to give you the raw, honest truth of someone who was heavily addicted to weed, drinking all the time, getting crossed every single weekend. And it got to a point, like I'm telling you guys, like, I could no longer talk to girls. I could no longer just like talk to anyone. My family thought I was crazy, and it was just an absolute mess. So if that sounds like you, if that sounds like you're going down a wrong path or whatever, especially when you're young, you have to use these 3 things, guys. The first thing, like I said, detach yourself from the drug by slowly tapering off, okay? Half your usage, a quarter your usage, until you get to a point where you don't think about it much. And when you are thinking about it, try and do something else, right? Something else that releases dopamine. Work, talk to friends, do something, take up a new skill, a new hobby, okay? And then third of all, stop identifying with the persona, okay? Don't say you're trying to quit. Don't say, like, oh, I miss it, but like maybe one day I'll get it back. No, maybe. No, just say you are not that type of person. You do that over and over again, you're gonna see that you're gonna slowly detach from it. And this can be used for anything in life, okay, guys? Not just drugs. It can be used for, detaching yourself from any type of situation, okay? You have to slowly replace it with other things. So I hope this video is helpful. Let me see if I have any other notes on here. But at the end of the day, guys, it's going to be like 3 weeks at least of a little bit of pain. I'm not going to guarantee that you don't feel anything, whatever drug you use, right? It's going to take a bit of time. But once you get over those 3 weeks, your body just naturally starts to adjust, okay? A lot of people think that that doesn't happen, right? Like your body doesn't take time to adjust. You're going to be constantly like used to it. No, you have to take 3 weeks, and only with 3 weeks you will see that slowly your body stops getting used to it, okay? It stops getting used to it. It adapts to its natural form. Because to be honest, guys, your body's natural state is where it wants to be. So if you're constantly feeding it drugs, it's not really the best state that it wants to be. So it has to auto-regulate, okay? And your dopamine levels will return to normal. You have to have that in your head, that it's not gonna be this bad forever. And once it does get good, that's exactly when you know that you've actually succeeded, right? But I think the most important thing out of these three is the identification problem, guys. Because a lot of people say, I used to smoke, or I used to drink, or I used to do drugs, but I don't do them anymore. Like, you have to be very convicted in yourself by saying, that's not me. Just say that to yourself. That's not me. That's not who I am, right? If you start no longer identifying with it, it is way more powerful than the other two methods that I'm telling you, because you're essentially convincing your mind that that's not the type of person you are, all right? So yeah, I think those are the key aspects. Once you get over it, it's one of the best feelings ever, and you can do a lot more. Your mind will open up, the world will open up a lot more, okay? So remember that, guys. Trust in Polo and trust in yourself.